Okay. Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, soon to be Hall of Fame, and we'll get into this in just a minute, Vern Glenn of CBS affiliate KPIX-TV in San Francisco, and Russell Jackman, who is joining us on the phone as he is a traveling man today and for a while. And at each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question. And today, since you guys just loved last week's Impossible Baseball questions, we have Impossible Baseball Questions Part 2.
Wow, 2.0. Great. Okay, great. All right. Bring it on.
You guys will do okay, I'm sure.
I got my encyclopedia from my Encyclopedia Britannica from the 30s.
You have it open in the car as you're driving down, I'm sure. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad I'm not on the road with you. And actually,
just one of those self-driving cars.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Or why don't you hire a limo and do it all in the back? In fact, I knew a guy.
I'll charge it to the program.
In fact, I knew a guy who used to do a lot of financial planning. This guy didn't technically even have an office. He had a limo, and in the back seat, he would do all his phone calls, and he would drive from appointment to appointment.
You mean he had a limo driver that just drove him around?
That's it. Wow. And he was very successful, good salesman, and he would just meet at people's houses. I'm sure he had a regular office, but he was never in it. He was always just in the limo. Because people, if you're doing financial stuff, you want to do it in person if you can, right?
Wow, if I was prospective client and then peered out of the window and I saw this stretch show up, I'd be like, wow, man, this guy's big time.
That's it, which can kind of go one of two ways, right? Either the guy is like, this guy's, fleecing everybody and he's getting all this money, or he's, very successful. So you got to kind of weigh those back and forth.
I don't think people are too wowed by my 2005 Toyota Matrix.
Oh, I am. I'm very impressed. All right. This segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, providing mortgage investments currently yielding 7.5% secured by real estate. Doesn't get any more conservative than that. Check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be right back. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here along with Vern Glenn and Russell Jackman on the road. Let's see. First of all, so sad. Joe Morgan. Oh, what a class act guy.
Yeah, I found out the morning that I was supposed to, oddly enough, host a charity golf tournament in the East Bay where Joe Morgan lived, and that the 49ers and the Raiders just dominated the conversation on the tee box. But boy, Joe was he was nothing but nice to me, but nice. And here's a guy that had a Hall of Fame career with the Reds, and he played with the Giants, and he played for the A's. He finished up with the Phillies, and
don't forget the Astros. He started with the Astros.
Started with the Houston Colt 45s.
Right. That's right. The Houston Colt 45s.
That's good. Right. Yeah. But arguably enough, outside of Honus Wagner, greatest second baseman of all time.
Honus Wagner was a shortstop.
Shortstop, okay. All right.
Roger Clooney or Ryan Sanford. No, he was definitely phenomenal. And the thing I really appreciated was we did a golf tournament charity. It was actually the Joe Morgan charity golf tournament a couple of years ago, and he couldn't play because he had bad knees. But he was driving around in the golf cart, and then we did some interviews with him for this show with him and Vita Blue and Tony La Russa and all that stuff. And it is so funny between him and Vita Blue getting together, to talk about the 72 World Series and just the back and forth. It was all in fun, but you could kind of tell that competitive spirit was still there.
Yeah. He was no shrinking violet when it came to his opinions on this game that he loved so much. After his playing days, of course, it was a national play-by-play guy for all the networks. He was one of the guys on the field during that 1989 World Series pregame show where when the earthquake hit, the Bay Area. So he just had so many opportunities to manage in the major leagues. Did not take he wanted more of a front office presence, and apparently was just on commissioner after commissioner about getting more people of color involved in those front office jobs.
I was thinking that if he would have been a manager, I think it would have been scared to play for him. What do you think the expectations would have been?
Yeah, well, hey, great player demanding, great play. So that's that's how he rolled.
It's kind of funny.
Joe Morgan to me was the anti-Joe Buck. I mean, I enjoyed listening to Joe Morgan talk about games the way I hate listening to Joe Buck talk about baseball games. The two of them couldn't be more opposite. Where Joe Buck talks out of his butt and he has no idea what he's talking about a third of the time. Joe Morgan knew exactly what he was talking about. And I found his insights on the game to just be enlightening. I look forward to any time I can listen to Joe Buck announce the game. I thought he was fantastic.
In fairness, Joe Buck never played the game. Joe Morgan, obviously.
And it shows.
Yeah.
It shows. It shows that he has never played the game. And Joe Morgan showed that he had played the game because he gave insights that you really couldn't get from other announcers that didn't know what they were talking about.
And fortunately for Joe Morgan, he always had John Miller.
Yeah,
incredible play-by-play guy, and that was a good 1-2 punch in the broadcast booth.
The best. It was one of my favorites. It really was of all time. I mean, we're missing out on a lot by not having Joe Morgan around.
Yeah, it's talking about going back to being a man, like how he would have been as a manager. It kind of reminds me of someone like Mike Singletary, who was a very, very good player, but probably just too hard of a coach to play for football wise. They're very similar that way, just the man perfection.
Right.
Frank Robinson's probably like that too, don't you think?
Well, Frank Robinson, I mean, he had a degree of success as a baseball manager after his playing days. So Frank's another one. I will say this, as intimidating a presence as I've ever seen. I mean, Joe, when you met him socially, at least Joe was nice and congenial and stuff like that. But I mean, you definitely had to respect him when he walked in the room. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 77 years young. Boy, we will miss him. That's for sure.
That is.
And what about these baseball immortals that are we just keep losing them? We're at an age.
Let's bring up Whitey Ford. Let's remember Whitey Ford too.
Yeah, 91. Whitey Ford was 91. I'll take 91.
Yeah.
But Edward, we're starting. You and I are starting to be of an age where, guys that we grew up watching play.
Tom Seaver.
We're starting to lose. Yeah.
I know. Just I'm still glad Willie is around.
Yeah.
But again, he's 89, so he's kind of getting up there too. And I know his eyesight's pretty bad, but
yeah, his eyesight's going. His just like his cognitive skills are starting to go just a little bit, and because of COVID, I mean, nobody ever sees him because he just stays at home.
Yeah, that's pretty smart.
And look, 2020 still has a month and a half left, so don't tempt it. Because it can still strike and take some other big names from us in the remaining month and a half.
Sure. Hey, before we cut to a break, we got 2 minutes to go. Vern, you were just telling me before we got on that you've been nominated and elected into the Hall of Fame for TV sports anchors.
Yeah, right? yeah. It was kind of. Yeah, thank you. It kind of came out of nowhere. I got nominated, and then not too terribly long ago, I was informed that I was part of the 2020 class for the kind of the Television Academy. This the same group that runs the Emmy Awards, and so this is a Hall of Fame organization. It's called the Silver Circle, and that's for at least 25 years in the business. So first ballot Hall of Famer, I'm proud to say, and I go in at the end of the month, and so I have Gary Radnich, who I was with for 23 years at KRON, and he will be my presenter, and we'll have some laughs when that day comes.
So let me ask you: do they have a out of 100 votes, you got 98 or something, or did you see
that? I don't know. I'll have to I'll kind of have to go in depth and try and find out exactly kind of how it happened, but I just know that I got enough votes from existing Silver Circle members where I got the nod. So I go in with six.
It better have been unanimous.
You'll have to go hunt down the people that didn't vote for you.
That's what. Yeah, I know. That's what I. Well, we're assuming that there's anybody who would have voted no, but I was just kind of curious if they. Yeah, that's a little different, I think, than you know, a baseball Hall of Fame type of thing with writers. You know, I'd be surprised if there'd be like no votes. You know what I mean?
Right.
It just doesn't seem like it'd be something like that. All right, and when we come back, obviously we've got to talk about Dak Prescott and then and the Lakers winning yet again, and maybe LeBron will go to like.
We told you so. We told you so.
Yeah, of course we said that. Maybe let's see. How about LeBron going to the Bobcats, seeing if he can take a title there? Okay, here's our first trivia question. This is the second part of quote impossible baseball question, and they're not really impossible, but they're just a little bit harder. Okay.
Yeah, they're not so impossible when you have the answer sitting right in front of you.
Of course, and nothing's impossible when I've got. You know, that's what I always wonder. It's like, why are teachers so smart if they have the answer book with them? I don't get it. Okay, who hit the most major league home runs in the 1950s? So you think of the decade, the 1950s. Who hit the most?
Well, here's the follow-up. Have we heard of this particular great ball?
Yes, you have, and okay, I'm pretty sure he's in the Hall of Fame. Okay. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So you have to think about it.
Well, yes, because I know the player, but I'd have to look up to see if he's in the Hall of Fame. So I know it's not Willie Mays because we know he's in the Hall of Fame, right? Okay, correct. So that's our trivia question. And stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown, Vern Glenn, and Russell Jackman here. I think we got to kind of stump the guys here with this trivia question.
Kind of. Okay. All right.
Who hit the most major league home runs in the 1950s? Come on.
Most home runs.
If it's not DiMaggio, I got no clue.
Okay, I'll give you the team. I'm pretty darn sure he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And I'm pretty sure he was a center fielder. I'd have to look this up, so don't quote me on that. He hit 326 home runs in the 1950s.
1950s. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. 3.
Man, I don't know, man. I'm blanking.
Maybe you should have picked this week to do Joe Morgan trivia.
I should have, but I already did these questions ahead of time. I'll have to do that next time. Duke Snider.
Duke Snider. See, I would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
I wasn't going in that direction. No.
Wow.
I know. That surprised me too. That's why I picked it.
He got that many pitches to hit. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. See, that's a good point, because how many times did pitchers pitch around somebody like they did Bonds? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I wish we could have like a baseball historian just to kind of explain the strategy of Major League Baseball in the 1950s. Did you just challenge guys and just go after him?
That's what I was wondering.
I don't know if small ball came into play. If it was just the power game, I don't know.
You know, it's funny. We had Denny McClain on a few years ago. That wouldn't have been the 50s. It would have been the 60s. Maybe know. We got to get him on and do that again. So let's talk about Dak Prescott. Compound fracture, which I saw if you look at a YouTube video, you can see the dislocation. You can't quite see the compound fracture. Apparently it did break the skin. And it's weird because it didn't look as serious as it looked obviously when it actually happened. But
when the leg was dangling like that's pretty darn
exactly. But it's like the way the player fell on it just didn't look like it was going to happen that way. You know what I mean? Once it actually happened, you go, oh man, I know what's going on here. So
Alex Smith saw that and just said, "Come on, walk it off, guy."
Exactly.
Put some dirt on it, right?
Or just play on one leg. Come on. So an injury like that, it's funny. I was wondering, it was like, how long will he be gone? And people are already talking about him coming back in April or May.
Well, with modern medicine, I mean, the injury like that, oddly enough, heals quicker than you think. And I think Alex Smith is the poster child for that one. A guy in danger of losing his leg entirely, and then he gets in the game and plays over the last weekend. But in the case of Prescott, I would imagine I think they snapped it and like reset it right away as he was on the cart to be driven off the field, and so. I'm sure by now he's had his surgery and they put the pins in or the steel rod or whatever to kind of straight, and then you have to let the bone fuse together, and from there it's just a matter of the atrophy setting in because he'll lay off on it, and then weeks from now we'll see if there's any kind of weight bearing or whatever. Listen to me, I'm talking like I'm Dr. Glenn. I imagine. I mean, it'll be several months before he can, put some weight on it and try and build the strength back in that ankle region. But what if you're Jerry Jones, what if he had signed a long-term deal?
Well, that's okay. So I was going to talk to you about that. So, explain what happened with the contract issues.
Jerry Jones had an opportunity last year or maybe the year before to really sign him on a I guess what you could call cheaper deal, and then Prescott started putting up numbers, and then his value just went up. But still, Jerry Jones would not sign him to a multi-year deal, and so he would just sign he would just sign the franchise player tag, which would be the average for a quarterback, which is still pretty good chump change.
Sure.
And so this was supposed to be the year that he was going to shine and lead the Cowboys to the playoffs and on another postseason run, and then sign his big deal. But now that he's out, Jones, I guess, gets to take that checkbook and put it away in the drawer, and then see what happens.
Man, that's.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of identity of the Dallas Cowboys wrapped up in Dak Prescott, and I mean, I think that when you have that huge, stadium, you're trying to fill it up. If you let a guy like Dak Prescott walk and you don't sign him, there aren't a lot of quarterbacks with his talent that are just floating around the league looking for jobs.
Agreed. Yeah, you just can't go to Target and buy another Dak Prescott. But at least, but the backup who had several successful years with Cincinnati Bengals, at least Andy Dalton come in and direct an offense. Dalton is no he's no
slouch.
Yeah, he's no Brian Allen.
Yeah, no, he maybe a little rusty, but he looked okay.
If he's rusty at all, it's all because he didn't get the first string reps that you normally would.
Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering, because it's the same sort of thing with Alex Smith. Once he eventually gets healed, I know Jerry Jones made a comment about I'd like to see less running from him. But even if he didn't say that, I mean, put your mind in the mind of a quarterback who's had those kind of injuries. How are you going to feel? I mean, we saw with Garoppolo. He had his injury, and you could kind of tell he was a little tentative.
Yeah.
I mean that's human nature.
Well, I think I'm not one that's just going to step in the mind of another player, especially somebody at that elite level. But in the case of Jimmy Garoppolo, who came off a knee injury and now has tried to come off a high ankle sprain, it's one thing in practice to execute the game plan. It's a controlled environment in practice. There's no tackling, there's no hitting, you can't touch the quarterback, and so you can feel like, hey, I feel pretty good, pushing off the back foot and making all the throws. But once you line up against guys at game speed, 300-pound guys that are trying to tear your head off, it's a whole different deal. And so
especially when they get that first sack.
Having been at that game this past Sunday, it was clear from the get-go that whether Garoppolo must have tweaked or done something where it was hobbling him again. And then once the Dolphins figured out, hey, this guy can't move, he just became a target and ended up throwing the interceptions and just being tentative. I mean, it was so obvious that Shanahan had to get him out of there to protect him.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it went for the 49ers.
Yeah.
And it is also showing that, you pay a lot of money to your quarterback, but you need to pay even more money to that offensive line to protect them. That's even more.
That's a good point. But how about those
on Sunday? They should have given their paychecks back to 49ers organization. They should. If I were an off.
I think the only time I ever heard that was I
Guilty.
think Joaquin Andujar, and I think it was him. One year he had a bad year as a pitcher, and he gave some of the money back. He said, "I didn't earn it." I think it was him.
Yeah, the Niners' offensive line didn't earn a penny, and that was one.
I don't know about you, Mr. Jack, but I was very surprised to see the offensive line getting the pushback like they did. Even the case of Trent Williams, who's supposed to be, oh boy, we got Trent Williams, man. We're good with the left side of the line, and even he was getting pushed back from the Dolphins' defensive front.
He looked like a bag of flour on a skateboard.
Did you see Joe Staley's tweet? He tweeted, "Go, what the hell is this?" That was his tweet.
Wow.
As the game was.
Are the Dolphins that much better, or
no?
They were that day
after the week before, by watching Philadelphia, manhandle them so badly, I would have really thought that the offensive line was going to take things very seriously against Miami, and they didn't prepare at all. They seemed like they showed up on the field after just not even working out during the week or whatever.
Just goes to show you these elite athletes. I mean, these are paid professionals, and like the cliche goes, any given Sunday, something like that could happen.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah, that was embarrassing. As a 49er fan, I just got to say that was just really a travesty.
I wonder if it's getting in their head now. Is their confidence getting shaken because of it?
Well, you'd never get anybody on camera to come out and say that.
No, and the thing is, it's not a one-man show, right? They have to kind of support each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And conversely, do you think maybe the Niners organization should consider tanking the rest of the season? I mean, one, you've already got so many injuries that are guys that are not going to be able to come back. Two, you're not going to lose any fans by tanking this year. It's not like people aren't going to show up to the park. You already can't sell any tickets to it.
And you already have Seattle and Rams.
Look at how big an impact a guy like Joey Bosa made for the 49ers after 1 year, So maybe this is the time to just say, you know what? We're already 2 games behind in the division. It doesn't look like Seattle's going to lose a game maybe for the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Hey, Russell, hold those thoughts. We have to cut to a quick break here. Okay, another impossible baseball question. Who had the most hits in a decade in Major League Baseball? And I'll tell you, in any decade, and we'll go past the 1900s. So it's not in the 1800s. It is in the, and I'll tell you ahead of time, it is in the 1900s. All right? Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back.
All right.
Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time. Edward Brown here along with Russell Jackman and Vern Glenn. Our second trivia question, Impossible Baseball. Who had the most hits in any decade in Major League Baseball? And I said that it was not before the 1900s, but it was before the 2000s. So sometime in the 1900s. So you have 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way through the 90s. So first of all, which decade do you think it was? Most hits.
Most hits in a
10-year span.
I'll throw the 70s in there.
No, I actually, it was the 1920s.
In the 1920s.
In the 1920s, which again was after the dead ball era. But anyway, Rogers Hornsby, 2,085 hits in the 1920s. And if you remember, he hit 424 in 1924. You have to have a lot of hits for that. So that was probably one more than 1/10 of them. I thought that was a pretty interesting one. Okay.
Yeah. I like that. I love the answers.
Okay.
I just can't get them.
Yeah, well, again,
Yeah,
like
no,
I
I
said,
was nowhere in the neighborhood.
these were impossible baseball questions. So, okay, so if the NFL had made the Titans forfeit against the Bills because they were talking about that, neither team would have been paid. So that's kind of, they call it a new wrinkle under the league's revised COVID-19 terms. So
So you must play in order to be paid.
that's what it sounds like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I guess they got to make sure they don't have any forfeits, right?
Right, right. Well, I guess we'll never know so long as they can continue to play.
And they'll just keep postponing games, you know.
Yeah, I have to believe. Yeah, if you're the NFL, I mean, you're going to do what it takes to get in all of these games.
Yeah.
There's so much on the line, advertising, all that.
The revenue.
You have to have them, and I get it's a good thing they got these bye weeks, and it's good that they have this time once the playoffs hit to try and get these games in, if it comes to that.
Plus, there's all this pressure. There's all this pressure on the NFL because Major League Baseball has been able to get itself into the playoffs, and the NBA was able to finish their season off. So you don't want to be the one sport that can't finish their season.
No, so that's a good point. And speaking back up to the NFL officials are throwing flags at a decade-low rate. They're calling offensive holding less than any in the previous 25 seasons, leading to more scoring. How long will this last? So, I mean, what do you think's going on? Were they told by the front office, listen, you know what, people are getting frustrated with too many flags being thrown?
I think it's relative. I mean, we're seeing a lot of flags being thrown on defensive penalties for roughing the passer, that are completely outrageous, where guys are, I think, making legitimate tackles on the quarterback. Yeah. And they're saying that it's unnecessary roughness. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, they're calling them for less of the ticky-tack fouls, but they're certainly, calling lots of fouls on the defense for rushing the quarterback.
Well, I've listened to a couple of interviews with former NFL referees, and their input is that unless you're absolutely sure, you need to keep that flag in the pocket and keep the games going.
And then, if I remember correctly, you can't throw a red challenge flag saying, "Hey, you should have thrown a flag for a penalty," right?
No, I think the most you can do is to try and use a TV timeout or call a timeout just so that you could possibly have the play reviewed from the box upstairs. But even that only comes into play in the last couple of minutes of the game.
Now the thing is, should they change the challenge flag where the coach should be able to say, "Hey, you should have thrown a flag because it was obvious pass interference, and you didn't call a flag"?
I think wasn't
that last year's rule? That was last year's rule, and it failed.
And there's going to be some pushback in that because just the time it takes to figure out did the ball leave the quarterback's hand? Was the arm really going forward? Was it a fumble? It's just too much time.
That good point. One other thing here, this is moving on to soccer a little bit. Hope Solo got snubbed from the Soccer Hall of Fame. Now, first of all, do you think
it's because of her behavior off the field?
I didn't see the whole thing. They didn't seem to get into it, but I'm going to guess that's probably what happened because would you think that her stats would qualify for her for the Hall of Fame?
Well, my first question is who votes? Is it former players? Is it the press? I mean, who gets a vote for that?
That's a good question. I mean,
and I have a more important question. Where is the Hall of Fame? And do you guys have even the slightest desire to ever visit it?
For soccer? No.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, why not?
I don't. I don't. I wouldn't go to the Soccer Hall of Fame. I haven't even been to the Baseball Hall of Fame yet, or the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Now the Baseball Hall of Fame is really cool.
That is a must visit.
Yeah.
Baseball.
If I'm going to go a trip somewhere, trust me, I'm not going to the Soccer Hall of Fame. Trust me on that.
Well, yeah, true. But so when we went to the Baseball Hall of Fame, we had to fly into Detroit and then into Syracuse. and then you drive a fair amount to get to Cooperstown. I guess that Syracuse is the closest airport. And if you want to get in,
do that for the Soccer Hall of Fame.
Wait, what's that?
You would do the same. You'd do the same thing for the Soccer Hall of Fame. You'd make a special flight and then drive 3 or 4 hours.
Not for soccer. For football one, I would. But and I have not been to Canton yet.
I have been to Canton.
That's got to be on your list, Edward.
Absolutely.
That's a must visit. I mean, by the way, the Soccer Hall of Fame is in Frisco, Texas. So I don't know if
Pass.
Okay, so let me ask you okay, when I went to the Baseball Hall of Fame, it was in January. So again, you expect, God, who goes there in January? It's too cold.
Well, upstate New York in January. Ooh.
Exactly. Now we happen to hit a warm temperature situation, so it was absolutely perfect. And we were maybe one of 25 people, so it was great. There was no lines or anything. I'm wondering for Canton, Ohio, if it's the same sort of thing where you're probably best to go in the wintertime. You can not have to wait in line.
Well, I don't know.
I went in the dead of summer. I went into the dead of summer, and there were no lines there either. But this is 1991. So
was it too humid though?
It was pretty hot out there, but that's Ohio for you. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
I think they get you in and out of there pretty quick. It's so big. There's so much to see.
Yeah. Want to see films of Bronco Nagurski carrying 6 guys with him in the end zone,
Well, the part you have to see, the best part of the Hall of Fame is seeing the bust of Terry Bradshaw, because everybody that sees the bust of Terry Bradshaw is compelled to pat his bald head, and so his bald head is super shiny from all the people rubbing it. Pretty damn funny.
Wait a minute. So they have because again, I haven't been there yet. So it's like a life-size figure.
Yeah, they have the bust of all the.
The bust of gotcha. Yeah.
And even though they say don't touch it, everybody touches Terry Bradshaw's bald head.
Oh, that's funny.
So he's got a super shiny bald head from all the people touching it. It's like the Blarney Stone. Everyone needs to touch.
And isn't Terry? Is he starting like some new reality TV show with his daughters?
Yes. Yep.
I mean, he's so funny because he's somebody who, as a Raider fan, I mean, we used to hate Terry Bradshaw, But then after seeing him in movies, a couple of TV shows, and being on, as he's gotten older, I don't know. You just kind of love the guy now.
Well, he's a likable guy. I mean, I don't know if you've ever met him, but he not too terribly long ago, he was here in the Bay Area at a book signing, and I pulled him aside and talked to him. First of all, he's a very large man. I mean, he's got huge hands. Yeah. So and the way he would hold the football, his index finger he held on the corner of the football, so he threw it kind of like a dart. His hands were so big it just had that spin on it when he let it go. Yeah,
and it's funny because a lot of people talk about like his record not being that great. Throwing a lot of interceptions, but boy, I remember watching him and just feeling like, man, he's just one of those guys you'd actually want to be your quarterback if you had a couple of minutes, like a Montana.
Well, he was just a devil may care. Hey, nobody open, I'm throwing it anyway.
Yeah,
kind of guys. Because he had 2 great wide receivers that he knew. All he'd do was just throw it up, and they'd go up and get it.
Yeah, Stallworth and
Swan.
Swan. Yeah, I still remember that. In the Super Bowl, going over. I don't know which Dallas player it was, where he goes up, sort of bobbles it, comes down, and then catches it.
I don't know if it was Charlie Waters back then. I'm not sure, but it was somebody deep. It was that tried to stay with him, but great catch.
So let me ask you for the Super Bowl.
Swan himself still isn't in the Hall of Fame, though, is he?
Lynn Swan? I don't know.
Did they? I don't think he is. I think that his catch is in the Hall of Fame, but he himself isn't.
Oh, wow. That's kind of interesting. Okay. So for the Super Bowl, I mean, what do you think we're going to do for all this COVID stuff?
I don't know. We'll find out when I get there. I mean, it's
maybe they'll have everyone in a plastic bubble.
And speaking of COVID, it happens to be in Florida, in Tampa. So Well, yeah, we'll
Oh, wow.
see.
And then was it the following year? I think it's in LA, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah. Jeez. I mean, it's funny because Lee Steinberg always has his party the Saturday before. I mean, this whole COVID thing is just really throwing a monkey wrench into a little bit of everything, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, geez.
So for basketball, I don't think it did. I think basketball did it the right way with the bubble. I think that they, were able to get, their players. The vast majority of their players were playing. Nobody came down with an illness during the time that they were playing, and they didn't have to lose anyone due to COVID. I think that may be an example that the other sports are going to try.
Aren't they going to do that in baseball? They're going to. Were they talking about that for the World Series? Well, of course, the World Series, you're only talking about the two host teams, but
yeah, but they're going to play it in Arlington, right? The World Series.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
yeah, they're gonna just one place, and then that's going to be it. By the way, in the pursuit of fact checking, Lynn Swan, a 2001 inductee of the Pro Football.
Okay.
Oh, he did get in. Okay, good.
Good. Yeah. No, he's a good guy. Okay, so here's our last trivia question. Again, impossible baseball questions, and then you guys can sweat it out. And go, this is over. Okay. Who was the first?
Next week.
Who was the first player in Major League Baseball history to hit 4 home runs in 2 different World Series? So again, not games, but so he was in enough World Series to hit 4 home runs in 2 different World Series.
2 different World Series, 2 different World Series. Right. Collectively, he had 4 home runs.
Correct. So he might have gone 7 games.
In each series.
Yeah. So it might have gone 6 or 7 games, and over that period of time, he hit 4 home runs. So
can you tell us the decade? Can you tell us the decade?
1950s.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1950s. Okay. All right, that's our trivia question. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We are going to be right back with some closing comments. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, Edward Brown here, along with Vern Glenn and Russell Jackman. Here's our third trivia question. Who was the first player in Major League Baseball history to hit 4 home runs in 2 different World Series?
Yeah, it's got to be a Yankee. Got to be.
No, actually, it's not.
Really?
Oh, no.
Yeah. The 1952 and 1955. That should give you the hint. 1955.
Yastrzemski.
No. Yastrzemski didn't play in the 50s.
This is probably a Brooklyn Dodger then.
Brooklyn Dodger, because remember in 55, that was their only winning World Series.
Only one,
5, 4, 3. I know, put the pressure on you.
It wasn't Jackie Robinson, was it?
No, he didn't hit that many home runs. It's back to the Duke Snyder.
Oh,
yeah. 1950, of course. We just asked the other question about the Major League home runs. So 1952 and 1955. Okay, so before we cut out for our thoughts for the day, you got to mention a little bit about the Los Angeles Lakers.
Well, we're all here in Northern California, but there are Laker fans all over the Bay Area, and as much as most of the Bay Area wants to root for the Golden State Warriors, you got to tip your hat to the Lakers for winning.
Absolutely.
I believe they're their 17th NBA championship.
Yeah, and between AD and him meaning LeBron, they got a few more good years ahead of them. All right, guys, we got to cut out for today. Here's our thoughts for the day. Research has shown that laughing for 2 minutes is just as healthy as a 20-minute jog. So now I'm sitting in the park laughing at all those joggers. and make today so awesome that yesterday gets jealous. I like that one.
Make today so
Make
awesome.
Today so awesome that yesterday gets jealous.
So that's a good one.
I like that. All right, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We'll be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions, hopefully a little bit easier this next time. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, your host. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.
Adios.